it was a very sort of, I apologize for making a joke. At the same time, he's actually not only bi-coastal, but bi-continental, because you spend a lot of time in the United States as well as the time that you spend in your home countries. I was wondering what insight, especially from that, do you have of something that Americans just don't get, or we just don't understand?
Yeah, well, my DNA has PIA in it. Not the airlines, but Pakistan, India, and America. My mother was born in Patiala, which is in India, and when partition took place, the family moved to Lahore, where I was born. And then when I was a teenager, when I was 11 years old, I came to Rockland County, an hour away from here, and I went to junior high and high school. That's where I joined a garage band, and instead of my parents' wishes of being a doctor, I did study to be a doctor. I became a rock musician by profession. And so I have a unique insight. I think all artists do anyway. We see from the heart, and when you see from the heart, all the masks fall down. Culture humanizes what politics demonizes. And so insight, going back and forth from Pakistan to India to America, I see that, people watch the cookie cutter of the media, that's their view of Pakistan, that's their view of India. But when you go there on the ground and you meet people, you find out it's very, very different. One of the things is that Pakistan is a country of 175 million people, 60% of whom are under the age of 24. And this huge youth bulge is, I think, it can go both ways. The extremists are trying to recruit them for terrorism, but at the same time, these are young, young people who want to be part of modernity, want to be part of the world. One of the reasons that I was successful as a rock musician is because of India also. Because my band, when we got known, we got invitations through the internet. And this is when, as Suki was saying earlier, we fought 3 wars. The 2 countries have fought 3 wars and skirmishes. But young people in India saw beyond that cookie cutter, and they invited us. And we toured India. We've performed with India's biggest artists. And so the bond that we've built through culture, it's so powerful. And even when I was a kid growing up, I knew India not through the wars or the state demonization, but through Bollywood. I knew the music, I knew the actors, my whole family. I mean, Pakistanis are crazy about Bollywood. And yet, I think it's a good thing that we have India and Pakistan, because the great cricket matches that we played would have never happened. But at this time where we are, I think, especially with President Obama's speech in Cairo, I can't stress to you more of how interconnected we really are, and we can't afford to be insular and isolated, And I think that something that happens 8,000 miles away in Afghanistan or Mumbai or Islamabad is directly impacting on everything that, our security here in the United States. So we need to know more. And I would just say that there should be a new paradigm of cooperation between cultures and people today. And these guys are cutting edge. I mean, I'm a fan of both of these guys because as business leaders, they are the ones who are saying, business makes things happen. So business, pop culture drives politics. I think that's the way forward.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, what I wanted to do, I'm going to be opening this up to you guys fairly shortly as well, but let me at least, broach the untouchable question that's out there. We in the United States are trying to make sense of what's happening in that part of the world, especially in what we're hearing in Swat Valley and in Pakistan and the influences that are taking place across border and the spillage from Afghanistan. I was wondering if you could give us, and it's very cold to do this, but in a fairly short period of time, a sense of what's happening there, because I know that we're getting things in a comic book format. So I'd like to get some insight of what's feeling on the ground for you, Amin.
All right. I think it's complicated in one word, because um, Pakistan has gone, as a society, as a nation, has gone through a very stressful period in the last 30, 35 years. The entire society has been subject to a lot of external shocks, internal shocks, and it's become kind of a fractured society. There is a sense of paranoia as well. And paranoia, quite frankly, I find in most societies in the world, even in the US, misperceptions and paranoia. All of us do, but in Pakistan, because of the high stress levels, it had become much, much higher. I think as far as Pakistan was concerned, as far as the US is concerned, since I'm here, I think we need to differentiate between hate, quote unquote, and being, crudely speaking, cheesed off. The Pakistan society is more cheesed off at the US rather than this whole religious or ideological hate that somehow comes across. Not at all. Even the religious leaders tomorrow, if they can get an opportunity to send their kids to the US, they would line up and send them out. So there's no this thing. And a lot of people from America or from the West, for that matter, come to Pakistan. The best impulse you get is when you walk out on the street, you talk to the cab driver, etc. You'll never ever find any hostility at all. If anything, there'll be a lot of hospitality. That's where you get the real pulse of the society. So I think for us to just dismiss and just, compartmentalize this thing into blind hate, because when you think that someone hates you, you do not reason it out then. You just say, okay, it's due to some ideological reason, the hell with them, or go and bomb them, or whatever. And I think you need to understand that, Pakistan, after, Clinton also had given recently a month ago, that there is this sense of abandonment, because after the collapse of the Soviet Union, Pakistan was left with about 3.5 million refugees, Afghan refugees in our border. And that went on. Even today, we have nearly 2 million refugees. So you're looking at a 30-year period where Pakistan had been hosting this direct fallout of this Afghan war. And once when the strategic importance of the US had finished off in Pakistan, we were very, very badly abandoned, because we did not somehow, fit the US immediate interest. And while you had Michael Jackson or Gonzalez trials going on, or O.J. Simpson, there we had like 3 million plus people who were we were hosting. And to add insult to injury, immediately the moment US walked out, Pakistan was subject to sanctions. The Pressler Amendment came in where about $600 million of Pakistan was stuck for, I think, about 10 years or something like that. Over here, we were suddenly the nuclear sanctions started coming in. So we were not only abandoned, but we were also subject to a lot of sanctions. And for Pakistani culture, that's a sense of kind of humiliation, and that strikes a very, very deep chord. And that, quite frankly, people have still not forgotten. Since we were the people we were the society that paid the price. We had drugs coming through our society, because before this thing, remember, Pakistan was, in the 60s, Pakistan was a role model economy. The World Bank used to quote Pakistan to Korea, Taiwan, Malaysia, Thailand, Philippines. All of them used to come to Pakistan and study how did we succeed so well. We used to have one of the highest growth rates. Our basic economic indicators and social indicators were going really, really well. So from there to coming to here, of course, we do as Pakistanis, we should accept the blame ourselves. But nevertheless, you had this whole